The magic mirror. What do you see when you look inside? Have you ever really looked at yourself? I don't mean just checking your hair in the mirror. I mean really looking inside, deep down. Who is that person looking back at you? People have been asking this question for ages, from wise teachers to everyday folks. We go through life telling ourselves stories about who we are, taking on different roles, and sticking labels on ourselves. But what's underneath all that? Buddhism offers a unique perspective on this, a path to understanding the fluid, ever-changing nature of what we call self. When the question, "Who am I?" arises, a cascade of thoughts often follows. We might recall our name, our profession, our relationships, or our achievements. We tell ourselves stories to make sense of our existence, weaving a narrative that defines us. This is how we present ourselves to the world. When someone asks, "Tell me about yourself," we instinctively reach for these well-rehearsed stories, offering a curated version of our identity. We talk about our past, our hopes for the future, our likes and dislikes, creating a picture we believe represents who we are. But consider the story of Prince Siddhartha, the man who would become the Buddha. He lived a life of luxury, shielded from suffering. Yet one day, he encountered the realities of aging, sickness, and death. This sparked a profound shift in his awareness. He saw beyond the royal reflection, beyond the title of prince, beyond the story he had always been told about himself. This moment of clarity led him on a quest to understand the true nature of existence, a quest that ultimately led to enlightenment. So what remains when we strip away these labels, these stories we cling to? What happens when we remove the titles, the roles, the possessions? If you are not your job, your relationships, or your past experiences, then who are you? This is where the exploration truly begins. The many masks we wear. Throughout our lives, we effortlessly shift between various roles. We are a child to our parents, a friend to our companions, a professional at work, and a stranger to those we pass on the street. Each of these roles calls forth a different aspect of our personality, a distinct mask, so to speak. This complex interplay of identity is not merely a modern observation. It has deep roots in both Eastern and Western thought. Carl Jung, a pioneer in modern psychology, delved into this very phenomenon through his concept of the persona. He recognized that individuals adopt different social masks to navigate the complexities of human interaction. These personas, as he termed them, are the carefully crafted images we present to the world, adapted to meet the expectations of others and the demands of our environment. However, it is of paramount importance to distinguish Jung's understanding of the self from the Buddhist concept of Anatta, no self. While both acknowledge the multifaceted nature of human experience, they do so from fundamentally different starting points and arrive at distinct conclusions. Jung's model of the psyche includes both the persona, the mask, and a deeper, more fundamental self, with a lowercase s. This self is not static. It is a dynamic and evolving entity, strives for wholeness and integration. It encompasses both the conscious and unconscious aspects of the psyche, including the ego, the personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. For Jung, the process of individuation, of becoming a fully realized individual, involves integrating these various aspects of the psyche into a harmonious whole. The self, in Jungian psychology, is therefore the totality of the psyche, with the ego being just one part of this larger whole. Jung further posited the concept of the self, with a capital S, which represents the ultimate goal of individuation, a state of complete wholeness and unity. Buddhism takes a different path, suggesting that there is no fixed, unchanging self at the heart of our being. Instead of a permanent core, the Buddhist concept of anatta invites us to see ourselves as a flowing river of experience made up of 5 interconnected elements or aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, and consciousness. These elements are constantly shifting and changing, like currents in a stream, arising and passing away in each moment. There's no separate entity behind it all, no owner of these experiences, just the flow itself. Jung was deeply interested in Eastern philosophies, including Buddhism, and he saw parallels between his concept of the collective unconscious and certain aspects of Eastern thought. However, his engagement with Anatta was primarily through the lens of his own psychological framework. He interpreted it as a metaphor for the limitations of the ego and the importance of recognizing the vast, unconscious dimensions of the psyche. Jung found resonance between Anatta and his own theories, but his path was one of psychological exploration, distinct from the Buddhist path that sees Anatta as a fundamental truth about the nature of reality itself, extending to all levels of existence. Therefore, while Jung recognized the value of exploring the fluid and multifaceted nature of identity, he did not subscribe to the radical deconstruction of the self that is central to Buddhist thought. He was not attempting to validate or refute Buddhism. Rather, he sought to incorporate certain Eastern insights into his own theoretical framework to enrich Western psychology's understanding of the human psyche. In essence, Jung saw the exploration of different facets of the self as a path towards integration and wholeness, while Buddhism sees the deconstruction of the self as a path to liberation from suffering. Both perspectives offer valuable insights into the human condition, but it is crucial to recognize their fundamental differences to avoid misinterpretations and superficial comparisons. The masks we wear, the personas we adopt, are not inherently negative. They allow us to function in society and navigate complex relationships. However, both Jungian psychology and Buddhism caution against mistaking these temporary roles for our true nature. Over-identification with the persona, according to Jung, can lead to a fragmented and inauthentic existence. Similarly, in Buddhism, clinging to the illusion of a permanent self is the root of suffering. By understanding the difference between the constructed self and the true nature of reality, as understood in these two distinct yet insightful traditions, we can embark on a journey towards greater self-awareness and, ultimately, a more fulfilling and meaningful life. The Great Illusion: Behind the Curtain of Consciousness. Let's revisit the analogy of the magician. The audience sees the grand performance, the seemingly impossible feats, and believes in the illusion. But what they don't see are the hidden mechanisms, the careful planning, and the years of practice that make the magic possible. Similarly, we go through life believing in the solid reality of ourself, without realizing that it's a carefully constructed illusion, a product of our own minds. This illusion, this sense of a separate, enduring self, is what is often referred to as the ego in Western psychology. In simple terms, the ego is the part of the mind that mediates between the conscious and the unconscious. It's responsible for our sense of personal identity, our feeling of being a distinct individual separate from the rest of the world. The ego develops in early childhood as we begin to differentiate ourselves from our surroundings. It's a necessary part of our psychological development, helping us to navigate the world and interact with others. However, the ego can also become a source of suffering when we over-identify with it, believing it to be the totality of who we are. Buddhism invites us to step behind the curtain of our own consciousness and examine the mechanics of this illusion, the illusion of the ego. It suggests that what we perceive as a unified, enduring self is, in reality, a collection of 5 aggregates, or skandhas, constantly interacting and giving rise to the sense of me. These aggregates are form, rupa. This refers to our physical body, the material aspect of our existence. Feeling, vedana. This encompasses our sensations, both pleasant, unpleasant, and neutral. Perception, samjna. This is how we recognize and interpret sensory information. Mental formations, samskara. This includes our thoughts, intentions, habits, and volitions. Consciousness, vijnana. This is the basic awareness that accompanies all experience. These 5 aggregates are in constant flux, arising and passing away like frames in a movie. They create the illusion of a continuous, stable self, much like individual frames create the illusion of movement on a screen. Just as there is no inherent thing moving on the screen, only a rapid succession of images, Buddhism asserts that there is no inherent self or ego behind our experiences, only a continuous flow of these 5 aggregates. The ego, therefore, is not a thing, but a process, a dynamic pattern of identification with these aggregates. We mistakenly believe that we are our body, our feelings, our thoughts, our perceptions, or our consciousness. We say, I am my body, I am my emotions, I am my thoughts, when in reality, these are just passing phenomena that we have mistakenly identified with. Consider your own experience. When you say, I am angry, what does that I refer to? Is it your body, your feelings, your thoughts? Or is it something separate from all of these? If you examine closely, you'll find that the feeling of anger is a combination of physical sensations, form, unpleasant feelings, vedana, the perception of an unfair situation, samjna, mental formations like angry thoughts, and the impulse to lash out, samskara, and the basic awareness of all of this, vijnana. The I, the ego, is not a separate entity experiencing anger, but rather the label we attach to this particular combination of aggregates, the story we tell ourselves about what is happening. The monk who questioned the Buddha about the nature of self was essentially grappling with the illusory nature of the ego. He was looking for a solid, enduring self behind his experiences, but could not find one. The Buddha, instead of providing a theoretical answer, guided him to observe the 5 aggregates in action, to see for himself how they create the illusion of a permanent self, or ego. We can undertake a similar investigation in our own lives. By paying close attention to our experience, we can begin to discern the 5 aggregates at play. We can notice how our thoughts, feelings, and sensations are constantly changing, how they arise and pass away without any underlying, unchanging essence. This process of mindful observation, known as vipassana in Buddhism, is a powerful tool for dismantling the illusion of the self, for seeing through the ego's tricks. It allows us to see through the magic show of me and recognize the true nature of our experience. A dynamic, ever-changing process, devoid of a permanent, independent self or ego. This realization is not an end, but a beginning, a doorway to a more liberated and authentic way of being. The magic show of me, embracing the flow of impermanence. The realization that our experience is a continuous stream of change rather than a fixed and solid entity can be both disorienting and liberating. If the me of yesterday is already a memory, who are we today? This is where the Buddhist concept of impermanence, or anicca, becomes paramount. It teaches us that everything is in a constant state of flux, arising and passing away, moment by moment. Just as a river is never the same from one instant to the next, its waters constantly flowing and changing, so too are we in a perpetual state of transformation, shaped by the ever-shifting currents of our physical and mental processes. A beautiful melody is not a static object, but a sequence of notes, each one arising and fading away to create a harmonious whole. The beauty of the music lies not in any single note, but in the flow and interplay between them. Similarly, our lives are not defined by isolated moments, but by the continuous unfolding of experience. Each thought, feeling, and sensation is like a note in the symphony of our being, contributing to the overall composition, but never existing in isolation or permanence. We can also find profound lessons about impermanence in the natural world around us. Observe a tree throughout the seasons. In spring, it bursts forth with new leaves and blossoms. In summer, it stands tall and full, providing shade and shelter. In autumn, its leaves turn vibrant colors before falling to the ground. In winter, it stands bare, seemingly lifeless. Yet, through all these changes, it remains a tree, constantly adapting and renewing itself. The tree teaches us that change is not something to be feared, but an inherent part of life, a source of growth and renewal. Finding peace in this constant flow of experience is a central theme in Buddhist practice. By recognizing that nothing is permanent, that everything is subject to change, we can begin to loosen our grip on fixed identities and embrace the dynamic nature of existence. This doesn't mean becoming passive or indifferent to life. Instead, it means engaging fully in each moment, appreciating its unique beauty, without clinging to it or fearing its passing. It is about finding joy in the dance of change itself, recognizing that impermanence is not a threat, but an invitation to live fully and authentically. It is about learning to surf the waves of experience rather than being overwhelmed by them, finding stability not in resisting change but in embracing the flow. The joy of letting go, living light as a feather. When we begin to grasp the concept of emptiness, it can feel like the ground beneath our feet is dissolving. If there is no solid self, no permanent me, then what is there to hold on to? This is where the true joy of letting go begins. It is the realization that the very things we have been clinging to so tightly, our identities, our possessions, our beliefs, are the source of our suffering. Letting go is not about giving up or becoming detached from life. It is about releasing the illusion of control, the belief that we can somehow hold on to things that are inherently impermanent. It is about understanding that true freedom comes not from grasping, but from releasing, not from holding on, but from letting go. Consider the image of a bird soaring through the sky. It doesn't carry its nest or its past experiences with it. It flies freely, unburdened by unnecessary weight. Similarly, when we let go of our attachments to a fixed self, we find a lightness of being, a freedom to move through life with grace and ease. There is a story of a Zen monk who lived a simple life, possessing nothing but his robe and a begging bowl. One day, a thief broke into his hut, hoping to find something of value. Finding nothing, the thief was about to leave when the monk returned. Seeing the thief empty-handed, the monk offered him his robe, saying, "You have come a long way to visit me. Please take this as a gift." The thief, stunned by the monk's generosity, took the robe and left. Later, the monk, sitting naked under the moon, mused, "Poor fellow. I wish I could have given him this beautiful moon." This story illustrates the freedom that comes from non-attachment, the joy of having nothing to lose because you realize there is nothing to truly possess. In our own lives, we can find moments of liberation in the simple act of letting go. It might be releasing a grudge, forgiving someone who has wronged us, or simply accepting a situation that we cannot change. Each act of letting go, no matter how small, creates space for something new to arise, for a deeper sense of peace and freedom to emerge. Throughout history, there have been individuals who have found freedom in letting go, in embracing the impermanent and interconnected nature of reality. They have lived with a lightness of being, unburdened by the need to cling to fixed identities or possessions. Their stories inspire us to seek our own path towards liberation, to find our own way of dancing with emptiness. The Buddha, through his own journey of awakening, discovered the secret to authentic living, embracing the truth of impermanence and emptiness. He realized that true happiness does not come from external things, but from inner peace, from the freedom that arises when we let go of our attachments and illusions.